Do you truly know your customer? Do you know their needs, wants, and dreams? Do you really understand what they are looking for in an experience? Do you even know things like their favourite colour, what they like to drink, or maybe even their favourite movie? Well, this and other data is key to having a better understanding of your customer. This helps you with future sales and marketing, but also helps you with upsell and cross-sell with your current customers. Well, today I'm going to be speaking to Peter Johnson of Trytn, a booking platform that has a robust reporting system that can give you all this key data to help you make informed decisions and boost your revenue. Now, Peter and I have a great chat about how important a robust reporting system is and how it can really make the difference in your business. Now, when you look at everything from how an OTA, for example, doesn't give you that data, but if you have those strong direct channels, you can collect that data so you can make informed decisions and you can have a better idea of who your target audience is and how to market to them. So my name is Chris Torres of the Tourism Marketing Agency, and this is a Digital Tourism Show episode 260. So Peter, thank you so much for joining us on the Digital Tourism Show. Before we start and go into the topic of today, do you mind giving us a little bit of background on yourself and how you found yourself to be in the travel sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in hospitality my whole life. I actually got my start in hotels, so big box hotels, learned the industry, very educational, right, in my younger days. And then got a little bit of an itch, right? I was a big time traveler before and, I wanted to get out, see the world. So I found a pretty exciting opportunity in Bocas del Toro, Panama, if you're familiar. So I worked for a resort down there, and that was really my first introduction to the on-the-ground hospitality, but then also into the tours and activities space. So at our resort, we offered like a zip line. So I worked the desk there. I was responsible for organizing activities, scheduling boats, you name it, right? Mm-hmm. So really getting that, jumping off there. Did that for about a year and a half, and then came back to the States, got back into the hotel side, mostly on distribution. And then I worked for a marketing agency as well. It was all fun, right? But, activities are where it's at, let's be honest. So that's when I came across Trytn. And I guess I don't even know what year that was. But, I got my start with these guys, obviously still here, doing contract sales work for them. And I had just gotten married. So my wife and I did an 8-month backpacking trip throughout Central America, South America, and I was selling Trytn along the way. So it was awesome, right? You're doing that, you're seeing the world, you're selling this amazing product. And I did that for 8 months and then came back and have been full time with Trytn ever since. So that's been the last 3 years. So here we are.
Wow. So do you miss that traveling around, or are you happy being settled now?
Yeah, I'm happy. But let's be honest, that itch always exists. But that's also why this space is so exciting. I tell my friends, my family, I can literally get a business meet anywhere in the world, right? Like even if I'm going on vacation, I can meet with operators, and I enjoy that, solving problems, right? So it's fun. So even though, yes, I'm here in Chicago right now, there's always that opportunity to leverage it, wherever we happen to end up.
No, I'm the same. Just today, I was speaking to someone in Australia, and then another person in the United States, and then in the UK. So it sort of allows you to travel in your mind, although you can't actually physically be there.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, wildly different places, wildly different types of businesses, but, for the most part, we're all trying to solve the same problems. So it makes it fun. It makes it fun when you can take an experience from someone that on the surface level might not be in the same niche or what have you, and then you can leverage that in further discussions. And at the end of the day, it's just like, how can we make an impact, right? So yeah, it's cool. It's a fun
Yeah.
spot.
Well, you mentioned Trytn, and Trytn are a reservation platform. And as we all know, there are hundreds and thousands of them out there. So how do you differentiate yourself from your FareHarbors, the Checkfronts, and all the Resdes of this world?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And, you're right. There's a few of us out there, right? So there's a lot of choices. I think at our core, we are a product first company. That's the approach that we've taken from day one. And we know our clientele. We know the challenges they face. As I said, I've worked on that side of the desk. Other members of my team have. So we know what resonates with them. We know how they think about things, and we understand where the systems fit, within that larger context. When it comes to what we value and what we prioritize, I think simply put, we're putting that onus on simplicity, like the ease of use, and then transparency, right? So those are things that are really important to us. I mean, our goal always is for each one of our clients to feel confident in their ability to wield the full platform and everything that comes with it, right? Because so often you feel or you hear that I've got to call support for this, I've got to call support for that, I don't know how to do it, right? So that's something that we've really, really made an effort, and I think we've succeeded. And then on the transparency side of things is we want to make that information, right, the customer details accessible, okay, so that an operator can now act on this in whatever capacity it is, right? So that's where, the topic of this discussion, we're going to talk about reporting. That is a real differentiator for us, right? And what we're able to do with that is only possible with decisions that we made years and years ago. So, those are the things that I think resonate with a lot of people that are transitioning. You want to be able to do what you need to do without, sacrificing functionality, right? So, complexity, but keeping it simple.
Yeah, you mentioned reporting, and that's one of the big parts of your system, and it's one of the big parts I want to focus on, because from experience, this is one of the aspects that a lot of operators don't really focus on properly, or don't collect the right data, or it's limited because of the systems they use. How important is it to look at the entire customer transaction as a whole, not just looking at the sales data side of things, but the specifics on how many people are on your tour, their gender, their age, or any other things that may help the business?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. And, the quick answer is it's incredibly important, right? The interesting thing is, and you kind of alluded to it, when people hear reporting, I think their default is numbers, right? Sales data, right? And they're not wrong, right? It's a big piece about what we do. The numbers got to make sense. But I would make the argument that in our line of work, in our industry, being able to segment out different pieces is, it's an absolute necessity, right? Because if you're an operator, there's really one thing that you got to be focused on. You got to have clear visibility into your operation, right? What's selling, who's buying it, when are they buying it? But then on the flip side, operationally, there's important information required in order to execute on said product, right? Add-ons. Maybe you need to ask, experience level, dietary restrictions. Operators wouldn't ask these questions if they weren't needed, okay? But the challenge then is, how do you act on it? How do I get into all the data and now make it useful? And that's where we've been incredibly effective, right? So, to your point, the different, call it demographics, somebody in your shoes, how much more effective are you on behalf of your clients if you know what products to push with a specific ad, who to push them to, and when, right? So now Trytn is helping Chris be effective for, your client. And then if we're all doing what we do well, then everybody wins, okay? But if you're flying blind, then they're absolutely flying blind, right? So those are the things that we like to think about. So that's on the marketing side of things. But I think what really needs to kind of be hammered home is on the operations side, right? So, what equipment is required for a specific tour, right? How much is needed at a given time? What are those dietary restrictions? And then how do I get that information at scale, for an activity that has 20 something people to that guy? Because they're the ones that now need to live it and breathe it, and they need to be able to act.
So, in terms of your own platform, and from the point of view of an operator, when is the best stage to collect that data? You maybe don't want to do it at the booking stage because you don't want to be asking loads of questions, or would you? Is it better to ask it afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, and there's always going to be that balance, right? So and it's interesting. So we work with people that they ask a lot of questions during the booking process, and we work with people that ask very little, right? I think the question that operators need to ask themselves is, what do I absolutely need to be able to execute, right? And, that mandatory stuff, if you've got to collect it anyway and someone truly wants to do something, I don't see anything wrong with asking that during the booking flow, right? If the system makes it easy to just get through that process, right? You can also leverage like follow-up emails, automated emails to do things like that. But at the end of the day, also put yourself in the consumer's perspective, right? Especially if you're doing, call it the more in-depth activity like a scuba diving or perhaps even like skydiving or something. Like, I am going to feel more comfortable if I know that they're asking me these things, right? Because there's that level of trust, right? So I think most consumers realize that it's being asked for a reason, and at some point I'm going to have to, give that up. So it's always going to be that balance. And I think if you've got a flexible system, you can adjust and figure out what that exact balance is.
So following on from that, one of the things that I get asked a lot, and it's at collecting data, especially if they rely heavily on an OTA, for example. Which because as a lot of people may not know that the OTAs hide a lot of that information. Do you guys have a solution or can recommend any way that they can collect that information better or more readily so they can use it in their marketing or they can use it for future sales, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some tools, but I think first things first is, an operator always has to evaluate, right? And the only way for an operator to truly guarantee themselves that they're collecting the customer details that they need is to maximize their direct sales. It's the only way that you can be in full control. Okay. That said, we partner with OTAs, right? Our operators partner with OTAs. So we're able to expose whatever the OTA exposes to us. It's kind of the nature of the beast a little bit, but at the end of the day, that OTA is going to be the one determining which information is then shared within the reservation system. So it's just something to think about, right? To your point with your original question, we do have some ways that we can then, help, facilitate the collection of that information. So, for example, you would be able to isolate bookings from said OTA, have a very clear view of that booking, of that transaction, and then see which pieces of information may not have been exposed. How big, or what size wetsuit do you need? Things like that, right? But yeah, we've got the tools for them to have that clear visibility into, okay, this came from, XYZ OTA. Now, now I need to act on it, right? Because if I do that today, even though, their trip isn't until, 3 weeks from now we're going to improve that day of efficiencies. And that's what it all comes down to. Whether we're talking about an OTA or a direct booking, if I as an operation have what I need, the staff members that had been required of collecting, size equipment, add on this, add on that, now we can automate that. Now we can say, hey, there's X number of these needed for this trip, this time. And then that employee, now they're in front of customers, right? They're not they're not just checking boxes. They're not, ticking the number of, turkey sandwiches that we need for this, for this rafting trip, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, Chris, we want to build that rapport, right? Operators are building that rapport. So let's automate what should be automated, and then humanize what should be humanized. So if we can get that person from back office to the front office interacting with guests, that's what's going to contribute to repeat sales, right? That's what's going to contribute to, an online presence, right? The reputation. So, it's all interrelated, right? And we all use the tools that are at our disposal. But at the end of the day, we want to improve efficiencies so that we're interacting, right? We're building on these experiences.
It's an interesting one with OTAs. I understand why a lot of people rely on them. When things are good, if you think back to 2019, bookings are flowing, things are happening in, they don't have much to worry about, so they can see all this money coming in. It's easy for them in a sense. But then when something happens, or worse happens, or a pandemic, for example, that just stops. And because they've not had those direct channels, they've not had that data in front of them to then look for repeat business or to ask their customers for more or to hopefully get future bookings, it makes it a lot harder and actually makes them more vulnerable, in my opinion. So it's why data is so important.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And, your philosophy and the people that, partner with marketing agencies, they're investing in themselves, right? Because they want to improve direct. And, that's where our, alignment is. And yeah, OTAs, they can be very important, right? And they're, more important for some markets, but it doesn't matter who you are and where you operate. You've got to take control of your own destiny to an extent, because everyone makes decisions, right? For their own good for the most part, right? So if a decision made by a third party or a partner or whoever is going to impact you and you rely on them too much, like now you're in a tough spot. So, there's always that balancing act, and that's what operators need to, understand, right? And if, on the system side of things, if we can empower them with that data, right, to make informed decisions, then we're doing our job, right? But yeah, it's interesting, and no one's going away, right? But it's like, how does it all work together? And I think that's what everybody's trying to figure out. But yeah, I mean, we're always going to say, hey, direct is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's very much like marketing. If you have 20% coming from various channels and then 80% direct, that's the old 80-20 rule. It's similar when it comes to using OTAs, in my opinion. You rely on them to a certain extent, but make sure you have those strong direct channels. But you touched on it briefly in terms of it's not just for the marketing side collecting all this data. It's to help you, market to or target your existing customers to upsell with different products, maybe cross-selling, etc. And I tend to find a lot of operators don't focus on that type of data enough. What are some of the most effective ways you've seen that can really help with repeat business and boost an operator's revenue, especially in today's climate?
Yeah, I mean, again, yeah. So having that visibility, that's the start, right? And then, from the business standpoint, and going back to my earlier point, you want to be able to take advantage of the tools that are at your disposal, right? And if you're afraid to use the tools because you don't know how, or it's too hard to get started, then what's the point of the tool in the first place, right? So one example would be something that we've really, really greatly simplified is the ability to create promotional codes, right? So an operator could literally wake up in the morning and say, you know what, things are looking light 2 weeks out. I want to get a promotion up and running. I want to target that specific time frame, right? And they can literally create a promo code within a minute, okay? They can assign it to specific products. They can do all these things. And then, through their own marketing channels, right, they can go after current customers. They can post to their social media. They can get it out there. So now you've got a promotion, you've got this incentive, you're targeting, you're going after those existing clients, and So now you're building that relationship, right? And you're trying to gain that repeat business. So that's been a really effective tool. So then what happens on the back end, right, is was it effective? I had this idea, I acted on it, did it work, right? So now you can look at that specific promotion, leverage the reporting, and then now tie revenue to that specific promotion, okay? And so now you're acting on things, you're trying things, right? And then most importantly, you can now make adjustments, right? So that would be one example. I think another thing that works well, and it kind of falls within the same line, is building up your affiliates or maybe local resellers, or what I refer to as like a feeder business, right? Maybe you've got that local restaurant that they send you the walking tours or what have you. So now you've got these relationships, you've got these partnerships, but again, are they effective? So leveraging tools, you can set up affiliate codes within the system. You can track those promotional codes, as I just said, right? So now at the end of the month, end of the year, you look at all those affiliates, the feeder restaurant, and you say, how much did they send me? Okay. If it was, whatever that baseline is, was it effective? Okay. I need to foster this partnership. These guys are working for me, right? I need to reciprocate. Whereas maybe another one just simply isn't. Okay. Why do I even need to continue this if it's not effective? So it's giving that visibility, right? And then saying, okay, this works, this isn't. Let's focus my energy on what's working so that we can grow that piece and prioritize, what's effective.
The last 18 months have thrown a bit of a spanner in the works for everyone, to be honest. But because of this global pandemic, what data have you collected that you've maybe seen in terms of changes in consumer behaviour, in terms of how they purchase products, purchase tours, etc.? Is there anything you want to share or can share on that in terms of anything you've seen different happening in the industry?
Yeah, I think first things first, it's like right now, today, this summer, there's a huge amount of suppressed demand. So, that's great. Like, we're having a great year, which means our operators are having a great year. And it just feels good. I think a lot of people are bouncing back. So that's just very encouraging. In terms of like behavior changes, we're noticing now that things are, as I just said, coming back to that pre-pandemic level, right? So, for example, we produced this data point that we refer to as lead time, right? And it simply counts the number of days between reservation and then day of activity. And as you would imagine, it skyrocketed during the pandemic. There were no short-term bookings, right? Everyone hunkered down, especially on the international side. But what's encouraging is it's basically back to those pre-pandemic levels. So, those are the types of things that, we've got insights to. Big picture, I don't know. I think people are trying new things, right? Bucket list items, for whatever reason, they're antsy, they're ready. They have, maybe they've got extra money to spend because they didn't do anything last year. So that's exciting, for everyone, because I think it kind of speaks to the bigger, feeling that's around.
Yeah. No, we're seeing that as well. The demand is most certainly there. And I strongly believe that, and from what we're seeing is people will happily spend that little bit more, maybe more so than they would have done for the same experience previously, because they have been in lockdown and they have been under certain restrictions for so long that they'll just want to do something. They just want to experience something, so they will pay that little bit extra. In terms of one data metrics that you think operators should focus on, I know this may be hard, but if there was one piece of data they should focus on, what would you say it should be?
Yeah, interesting question, and I think that's the challenge, right? Because there's not one magic metric, right? As we've said, every business is so different. Every operation runs differently. And that's why it's so important to be able to figure out what's important in that moment, right? It's up to the operator to determine what's important. Because if you're doing month-end numbers, you're looking at the numbers. You're looking at like sales data. But if you're in the throes of a busy July day, I need to know how many turkey sandwiches I need to tell the kitchen to create, right?
Yeah.
So the point is, the operator should be in control of that, right? So to answer your question though, in terms of like, if I was an operator and what I prioritize, I think there's a few things to think about. At the end of the day, a lot of operators, they're flying blind to an extent, right? They're not looking deeper. And, the ones that are, oftentimes they're looking at unclear or even inaccurate information, okay? So for me, I would look at a few things. I would need to have a very deep understanding of the financials, okay? And what goes into that transaction, and being able to figure out, how am I profitable? What impacts my bottom line, right? So for example, taxes, right? Do I bundle taxes in or do I keep them separate? Okay. Service fees, credit card processing fees, a line item for that. If I'm working with a reservation system, and if they're working on the transaction model, it might not be an out-of-pocket expense, right? But what is that reservation system making? Because with so many people, like it's either not included in the reports or it's unclear, and you can't make good decisions unless you know what you're looking at. Okay, so that's something. The next piece is more like in your world, right? I would want to have a picture of where my bookings are coming from. Where are they entering that booking funnel? How they get there? Is it a direct site, OTA? Am I paying for ad spend? Is it social media? Because with that, I can figure out a plan. And then the last thing, and I alluded to it, is the data doesn't matter if it's not accurate, right? So I want accuracy in my data. So those are the things that I prioritize. And then to your original point, is it one thing? I would argue no, but being able to choose that one thing whenever I want, that's where you win, because now you've got that visibility, you've got that clear picture.
And that's what it's all about. It's knowing where your business currently sits, and the only way you're going to know that is by having the proper data in front of you, knowing how many sales you've had and all these different things. Take some of the guesswork out.
Right.
Basically.
I mean, yeah, and this industry, it's a tough nut to crack because it's fragmented, right? People do things differently. There's different needs, but it's from a system standpoint, it's really hard, So that's why, partnering with a reservation system that is flexible, nimble, can adapt to your business rather than vice versa. We hear often that oh, well, they told me to do it this way. It's like, well, was that best for you or is it best for them? So, all these things matter is what it comes down to. And, people are going to prioritize features. And for some businesses, yeah, you're going to have your must-haves, right? But how does it all work together, right? Is it fragmented? Are there gaps? Or is it a cohesive system? Because, my tech team might kill me for saying this. It's like establishing the requirements of a feature, that can be like the easy side. But how does that feature fit within the context of the system as a whole? What's that going to let you do later? Or what is that going to hand tie you later, right? Because whatever the answer is, you better darn well have a plan, right? So those are the things that we like, at Trytn, that we like to think about. And I think we've done a pretty good job to date with it.
You make some very good points, and it's like having a platform, and yours isn't. No, I'm not saying yours is one of these, but you can come across some platforms that look really shiny, they look good UI, etc. But when you actually look behind the system, they're lacking in a lot of different ways. And then you can have systems that look terrible, but are really, really strong in the back end. With the sounds of your system, you have both nailed, and you can take them through that whole journey. And then the reporting side is really strong, and it's one of the main focuses of your business.
Yeah, because software is changing, right? Or at least it should be. So that's not the adding new stuff or improving things. Like everyone is trying to do that, right? But do you have the means to do it right? So, and those are things where you have to go back in time, to like what happened years ago, so that years from now, you're not, kind of sitting in limbo. So, it's a fun space. All everyone's doing is trying to solve problems, and if you've got flexibility, you're able to solve more.
And it's, no, I don't mind saying this. It's not, back in the day we used to do a lot of websites or tour CMS. And at that time when that first came out, it was a really powerful, still is a powerful system, although the front end looks terrible, and it still looks terrible to this day. But the back end was really powerful. But any tour operator that wanted a certain feature, they would develop that and tailor it for the actual operators, and not try to get operators to fit the system. And that's what I liked about your system, is that you go along that sort of same route as well, where you try to adapt the system for the operators rather than the other way around. And that's, and if it proves that it benefits your system, and obviously it's something you'll implement. But I like that flexibility that you'll do that for the operators.
Yeah, and that's the cool part, right? Because we've got good ideas, right? But some of our best ideas come from our clients, right? And as long as we're able to define, and then be able to think down the line, then we act on it. And I think, didn't even mention this, when you asked the first question from a differentiator standpoint. I mean, we don't outsource a thing. So our tech is in-house. I mean, literally the guy that wrote the first lines of code, still writing it, that's almost unheard of these days. So the point is like everything's done with a plan, and, we've got the power, and, the knowledge to execute that plan.
So if anyone wanted to know more about Trytn, or basically just wanted to pick your brains or have some questions, how's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, open book, so you can drop me a note at peter@trytn.com. You can also check out the website. We've got learn more forums there, but I'm happy to have discussions with whoever wants to. You just kind of figure out, why are we talking, right? What's that thorn in the side, and then go from there. But just drop me a line and coordinate some time, and we'll be happy.
Well, Peter, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Just to know more about your platform, or specifically the reporting side. For me, that's just obviously being a marketer, having that data in front of you is key. So it's just been a great bit of knowledge to know more about it, even from my own point of view. But hopefully the operators watching and listening will take note that data is so important, and maybe even check out your system as well. But it's a great topic, and it's one that's close to my heart.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's been fun, and look forward to continuing.